What I've got for bill of materials on this is 1 by 6, 8 foot will do everything you need. And then I've got a 2 foot wide panel of 1/4 inch oak and glued and laminated it together. What I like to do is go ahead and glue and clamp that, stain it, and get a coat of sealer or something on it to help keep it from splintering. I'll explain that in a little bit. With that panel, you need to figure out what thickness you come into. You could use 1/2 inch plywood with an oak laminate on it, but I've found that to be pretty warped, and that helps take the warp out of it. So where I start is I cut this piece at 45 inches long to start with. And I cut this one at 38.5 because the pieces you cut off here will work back. Well, I like to do that. That way all your grooves stay good and flush and line back up when you go to use those. What I do is start and take this groove here, the thickness of my bottom, or a hair deeper, so that way you can sand this flush if you need to. That's one reason I like to varnish my bottom and that, because that veneering is real thin. If you hit that with the sander, you'll be through your finish on that. And I cut the bottom groove in both sides. Be sure to mirror image these or you will end up having one backwards and it will not fit together. After that, I cut this piece at 32.5 inches, and this will give you 2 pieces of this that will end up being your end caps. Next, you determine your height of your containers you're going to use, and this is about 4 1/8 inches on it from here to here. And then I run that through the saw. If you just have a saw, not using a router, just make multiple cuts to get your groove thickness on that. Once you get to it, you can cut this at your 32-inch mark. These measurements can all vary on your containers. Once you do that, I make this cut here at 2 1/4 inches back from this. I like to use 1/2 inch for my 2 end caps if you have the capability of planing that down, which would thin this cut up ever so slightly on both ends. But if you're working with straight 3/4 wood, that gives you a chance for your 2 end boards and a place for your powder storage to go in here. Once you've got your grooves cut and everything, this piece here, number 2, becomes your short end where your lid slows in, which is ripped down to 4 inches. The other piece stays full width, which both these pieces come out to right at 5 1/4 inches wide on your fit. With this, I come up from the bottom 2 3/8 inches, drill a 3/4 inch hole, and then rip down, just squaring that cut with the width of your hole. This piece here with your groove cut in the one end of it, off piece number 1, I rip the bottom lip off that, taking off the thickness of your lid so it will set flush on your bottom and flush on your top for making that. This piece come out of number 2 here. On your bottoms, these are cut slightly wide to start with till I get those stained and varnished so they will not split when you rip them. A lot of times when I rip this, I rip them 2 times, once from both sides with the saw blade just set a little over half. I find seems to splinter less. that should be all of your cuts. Another little thing I do on these, on the end where the lid comes in, I cut just a slight 45 for a little appearance. A guy could round that, leave it square. I just think it adds a little character to that. Here is what it will look like. This is in a glued up state right now with all your pieces. I cut my bottom. This come out to about 31 3/8 inches long. You can check that measurement since there's a little variation in that. Get that good and square, and your piece on the top, or what you cut off, I just use full 4-foot pieces of that. This all rips down to 5 1/4 inches. I put this piece in the top just to hold it square. I glue all the miters ends up here, and on this end, when I start, I make sure this fits in there. I leave this end off for now so I can stain and varnish the inside of this and the inside of this. After I give a coat, I usually put 1 to 2 coats of sanding sealer on it, about 3 coats of varnish on it, and then I will put this in here and glue it. One thing with this, when you get the varnishing on this thinner edge and stuff's not much holding it, I like to just dab a little varnish on my brush so it'll run down this crack here and help hold this piece in here when it comes time. The groove in this is for your handle for your powder lid, which I don't have cut for this box yet, which I will cut out of those pieces, and that makes a handy little box. Once I get this stained and varnished, I will cut a lid for it. I usually use just a cabinet pull for my powder lid here that will fit in this groove real nice. If you use 3/4 inch lumber, I found that I had to add some washers to get the thickness to clear on a 3/4 inch board. I had to add just a little bit to get the thickness there to get all this to clear. They may have a little longer stem cabinet knob or something you could use there. That's up to your own preference. I've thought about using some deer horns or something and making a handle on that, but for carrying reasons, I just find that concrete trowel handle, or float handle, I'm sorry, works the best on it. This box here has been glued and all that. I will fine tune a little sanding to make my edges good and smooth where they're at. This has been rough sanded. These boxes here where I have the capability have been run through a slight round over on the router just to relieve all the edges. Has been sanded up. Pretty much there will be just a little touch up on it, and I will be ready to start finishing this box. I will continue on later showing you that. I will have a bill of materials with this when I send it to the National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association. They have a how-to or a plan section there where you can get the plans for this. If you would like to see one of these, I am normally at the Quail Walk during the spring and fall shoot. If you have any questions, you can come down there and talk to me at it, or I will have my email address on the plans and the bill of material.